Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. I'm your host, Ash Woolford. Joining me today for our Man City preview are both the Jacks. AJ, how you doing, mate?
Goody gumdrops.
And Mozza, how you doing, buddy?
Waiting for the end to come, but very well. Thank you.
Well, by end to come, you do mean the season. Obviously, it's not that dramatic.
Of course.
We're almost there. Sunday sees us play the last game of the season at home. Sadly, it's a bit of a dead rubber now that Man City's league position is pretty much secure, and we no longer have Europe to play for after Brighton beating Liverpool during the week. Put a little bit of a dampener on what should be the end of the season, but there are a few things potentially happening on Sunday that are well worth talking about. AJ, as we say, it's a bit of a dead rubber. We often ask this question every week before we start these episodes about formations and starting lineups. If there's going to be a game where we're going to play some of the youth players that have been training with the first team squad, this is surely going to be it, right? Considering that there's not really much else to play for.
Well, half the squad from the last fixture either have injury troubles that they're working over or that they have gained over the course of playing too many fixtures. There is nothing to play for in this fixture. We've already broken the points tally. We could maybe squeak a league position with a nice win, but at the same point, it's not worth having and risking potential players. I'm expecting wholesale changes, which unfortunately probably means Ryan Sessegnon at left back.
Yeah, it does. Unfortunately, I think I agree with you there. There's a couple of potential last player sightings that we'll see this weekend. We still don't know if Tom Cairney is going to be offered a new contract. It's looking likely that he probably won't be. So Sunday could potentially be his last game here for Fulham. We still don't know if Kenny Tete is going to be offered a new contract. We know that the club have been working slightly towards one, but we don't know if maybe he's asking a bit too much money wise and length of contract for a player that's had as many injuries had, if that will actually go through. So potentially we could see Kelly Tete for the last time on Sunday. One player that will be playing for Man City, we know we'll be seeing for the last time is Kevin De Bruyne, a player that we'll obviously speak about when we come to talk about City in a minute. A player that I think everyone respects and admires as a footballer. So it'd be nice to be at the game to see that, even though he'll be playing for the opposition. Mozza, it's been a long season, right? It's been a bit frustrating how it sort of petered out over the last couple of weeks. But realistically, what should we expect from this game on Sunday?
Do you know what? I really think it's going to be one of those that we might actually win. Much like how we were against Liverpool. It's not expected. It's one of those games that on paper you don't expect to win. A point at best. I am very well aware of Crystal Palace's result, say through gritted teeth, against City. So I don't know if it's even more shame on us if we don't get anything from this game. But look, we go into it. Last game of the season at the Cottage. Hasn't this been our story for the last few months, boys, though? We go into it, hope for the best, expect the worst. Even just touching back on what the lineup might be, formation, you mentioned about getting the younger players in. Again, another thing we have kept saying over and over again. I really don't think we'll see much of that. There'll be 60, 70-minute subs. If Kenny's available, if he's on the bench, I think we'll see him. It will be like his last hurrah. Look, there is nothing to play for here, is there? There really isn't, apart from, I don't know what. I'm just looking at the table now, trying to finish above Brentford, trying to finish in the top half of the table. Even then, so what? I'm sorry if I come across deflated. But I am going to go to Craven Cottage. I'm going to be there at the game myself. And I'll be up for it, but I'm not going to come away depressed. Unless it is utterly woeful. But the other side of the coin is what have City got to play for here? That like, I mean, what they still qualify for Champions League, don't they?
They could lose out.
Could they? Okay, right. So I mean, they've got something to play for. So I think it will be a game as well. De Bruyne's last game. It's going to be tough. It is going to be tough. So I would love to see us come in guns out blazing like we should have done for actual important games for us. But I don't see it happening. But maybe we just might catch them off guard. I think the midfield is going to be a really interesting aspect, and how we go about that. We'll come to players to watch later, obviously near the end of the podcast. But yeah, it could classic Fulham. It could go one way or the other for me. But I am staying.
Yeah, there's a couple of things for everyone to remember, really. For every position we finish above ourselves in the league table is worth £2 million to the football club, which, potentially on Sunday we could finish 11th, we could finish 9th. That's £6 million swing in terms of how much money the club gets, right? And that's an awful lot in terms of potentially that's a player signing, that's a player re-signing that we don't want to lose during the summer for all we know, right? That's the cost of the youth academy for a year. It's one of those things that we talk about it all the time. We spoke about the price rises last year and how annoying they were, and they didn't even touch what the club would have made extra if they'd finished, 2 places above themselves and went on the beach for 3 months for the end of the season. So we're having a similar discussion now about where we're going to finish now. For me, this season has really petered out. It's not been great. If you look at 2 months ago and where we were in the league standings, it's all well and good that the club have reached record points totals, record win totals in a season, which is fantastic records for the team to have, and they should be exceptionally proud of that. And Marco and the lads should be proud of that. For me, it doesn't matter when the last 2 months have been how they've been, because they could have been so much better than they are. And it's really frustrating that, as much as I want to celebrate those victories because they are massive and they're really good things, obviously, to get the most amount of points and the most amount of victories from a team, we've let ourselves down at the end of the day, at the end. And, we know what those reasons are. We spoke about it on numerous occasions. It's squad size, it's, injuries and players having to play because of that. It's not wanting to blood youth players in that probably should have been played, and it's sort of come back and bit us on the backside loads of times. But this is Fulham, and it's one of those things that, we had very similar discussions before we played Liverpool a couple of months ago about not expecting anything, and they were playing for the league title, and they're going to be a really difficult game. And we came out and played our best game of the season, and we were outstanding for 90 minutes. And it's one of those things that we don't know what's going to turn up for us. For me, you look at Man City and you look at their squad they have. They could drop 9 players, they could drop 11 players, and still play 11 outstanding world class players. And that's one of those scary things in Man City that Mamouche doesn't play. Okay, well, Haaland, who's not been on great form, is still one of the scariest strikers to have to play against in the league. You look at that midfield. Even the youngsters that are coming through, like Nico O'Reilly and James McAtee, are both scary players to play against. They are outstanding young players, right? Phil Foden's having a terrible season. Want to bet that he'll do something on Sunday. He hasn't done all season. It's one of those. Kevin De Bruyne, who's had a bit of a quiet season, he's on his sort of stack. It's probably one of the reasons why he's now leaving City at the end of the season. It's still been really, really good. Like, he's still a world class footballer, and he's still a scary prospect to have to play against. It is one of those ones that this Man City squad is beyond stacked, and with a squad the size of ours, it's what do we go into the game expecting on Sunday, I think, is the bigger question. I don't expect anything in terms of a result. It's the same old. I've been saying it every time we speak about these things. I don't expect a result, but I want to see a performance. I want to see players are maybe out of contract looking like they actually want to try get those contracts, I want to see Kevin Tete have a big game. He's going to have to play on Sunday because we've got no other right back. You look at Tom Cairney, he's probably only going to play one half of football, and it'll probably be a second half, not the first half, because they'll want to give him, a reception if it is going to be his last time playing for Fulham. We still don't know if that's the case naturally, but for those of us who'll be at the cottage on Sunday, it's going to be special to really share that occasion because Tom Cairney has been an outstanding servant for the football club, and we didn't really get a chance to say goodbye to Tim Ream, who was also an outstanding servant for the football club. This will be, I think, a chance to at least say goodbye, which will be excellent. AJ, we always look at players to watch from both teams, right? You can't. Where do you start with this Man City squad? Now, where do you even go? Oh, there's a weak spot in that team because I don't see it. Whenever I look at them, I don't understand. I don't quite understand how they've had such a poor season because I think most football, like literally 99% of other football clubs in the world, would absolutely kill to have a squad that they have. I don't quite understand what's gone wrong with them this season.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. Like I was doing some math for a friend of mine in the semi-finals of the FA Cup. Um, and I think at the time it worked out that Man City's bench was worth more than Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace squad first 11s put together, which says something considering that Forest got done for overspending last year as well. So the fact that Man City's bench still costs more than both of those starting 11s is just something to behold. Their squad's just endlessly deep, whether it be with what is arguably at the moment the best academy products in the world, or just outright ridiculous purchases that they've bought from across the globe. Their teams their team man for man is everything you would want if you were building a FIFA career mode style. Like it's a football manager's dream. So the fact that they've had the season they've had, despite that, is a bit crazy with all things considered. Maybe it's just tiredness. Maybe it's just tactical ineptness from Pep from not being able to make his one or two usual changes to his regular tactics that surprise people this year. Who knows? But it's probably our best opportunity to try and get a result out of them. I mean, we're winless in our last Premier League, in our last 19 Premier League meetings with them. And out of those, we've only got points out of 3, with 3 draws and 16 losses. In all competitions, they've beat us in their last 17 meetings, which is the longest winning run for any one English club has had against another side in history, which is something to behold. And then even if you just take out the fact that it's Fulham versus City, we've only won one of our we haven't won any of our last 6 final games of the season. And Man City have won 9 of their last 11. So it kind of puts us in a precarious position where we really should not be looking at a result in this game. But as you lot said, blood in the youngsters, give players an opportunity and see how they can perform. But unfortunately, as much as I'd love to say that's what would be ideal for this game, Man City play a style of football that just prevents anyone else playing their style of football. So it just means that realistically, this game's going to be 70-80% of the ball Man City, with us trying to break on the counter, and it will just be not something any of us will be looking forward to watching, in my opinion, which is sad to say as a final game of the season, but having a game against Man City is not a game I'd want on any big occasion like the final day should be, because they draw all life and blood and entertainment out of football, even when they are winning things. It's just that's my opinion on Man City, and unfortunately, I think it'll be the same this Sunday, and it'll be something that we'd be better off having a barbecue on the pitch than watching the football because it'd be more entertaining.
Well, we did win the last game of the season last year against Luton, but that's a completely different prospect to play in Man City. Naturally, I think these Man City
Yeah,
games have been a bit mental because yes, we're on this long losing streak against them, but if you go back over the last couple of years, we've given them really good games. Even at the City, even at the Etihad, we've given them really really good games, and we've been done by dodgy offside decisions that should clearly be given, soft penalties being given, and typical, big six bias referees. And that's not me claiming foul, and that's why we've not won matches against Man City. That's just what's happened. Man City are an outstanding team who don't need help from referees, but they get it all the time, and it's annoying and it's frustrating. I'm still head rolling over the goal that was given last year at Man City away, where Akanji was about 7 miles offside and was clearly
the one
standing
that
in front of
changed the
Leonard.
rule. Yeah,
Yeah, and then the rule gets changed 2 days later. It's one of those things that it's like Man City is so frustrating to watch Fulham play. We go into every single FA Cup draw going, we're going to get drawn against them and lose 5-0 away. It's one of those things. I don't know why we turn over to Man City so much. Out of all the big teams that we play against, right, they're the one team that we just never seem to lay a glove on it when they're on it, and it's really frustrating. Um, and I'm really struggling to see us getting a result on Sunday. You know, well done Palace, obviously winning the FA Cup last week, but Palace play a game of style of football that we can't play. We can't play that. Will confidently defend for 90 minutes and attack on the break really quickly because we don't have the players to do that. And that's the one style of football that probably hurts Pep Guardiola, and we just don't have that in our locker. We tried to play that football against Man City a couple of times. We did it at the Etihad this season, and we took the lead at the Etihad again this season. We've done it a couple of years in a row, but naturally we can't sit back and defend, and that's where we really really struggle against Man City, and they are overly stacked with forwards, and it's one of those things. Their two strikers alone cost more than our whole squad. So it's one of those things that's really, really frustrating when you look at it. Lads, it's how we always do is to watch naturally on both teams who you're expecting to get a performance out of on Sunday. And if you want to be brave enough to give a scoreline prediction, then feel free to do so. They've come back to bite us in the arse. What 9 out of the last 10 episodes that we've done. So we'll see. We'll see how that rolls. AJ, we'll start with you, mate. Give us a couple of players to watch and from both teams and a scoreline prediction, please.
really, really tough one to say on players to watch, mostly because we don't know what we're going to field with our injury situation and the situation with us essentially having nothing to play for. And with Man City, it's always a roll of the dice with Pep Guardiola, as everyone knows. As everyone that plays fantasy football knows, because they'll be screaming about the fact that he's constantly swapping and changing players out. Foden has been quiet, but then does he start? I don't know. It's going to be one of those players you don't expect to be paying attention to that we're going to need to pay attention to. I'd love to say keep an eye on the Fulham youngsters, but then we'll say it's the final game of the season. There's nothing to play for. Marco will bleed in the youngsters, and then he'll turn around and go, "No, we're playing Man City. We're not going to do that. We don't want to kill their confidence by playing the world's best and biggest squad." So it's really tough to call. I think the one thing that we probably will see is Bertolino, and I'm going to play it safe and say him, because if there is a game where he'll be important and it and we get anything out of the game, it'll be because he has a good game. So yeah, I'm taking the cheap option and saying Bertolino is the one to watch, and Phil Foden if he plays.
You're going to give a
Scoreline.
scoreline prediction.
I'll give you a scoreline prediction. 3-1 Man City, with us taking the lead and getting that 31 points from losing positions.
Yeah,
From
proper
winning
positive then.
positions.
let's be honest. Bernardo could get shot in the leg on Saturday morning. He's still playing on Sunday, so it doesn't really
Yeah,
matter. Like
exactly.
you're not really put your head out on the chopping block by calling him to
No,
play.
exactly.
If I'm being honest. Mozza, how about you, mate? Players to watch and score no prediction.
I'm going to start my scoreline. I can't really tell you why. I've just got 2-0 on my head. Guess who it's going to be to? Of course. No, it's Man City. I don't see us scoring in this, and I hope it's as little as 2 goals we concede. I spoke about De Bruyne. Like I don't think he's really one to watch. Not for us, for anyone. Like I think he'll be quite relaxed. I am well aware of the irony that now I've said this. In hindsight, he will just absolutely, pump us all game, if that's acceptable to say. But you know what I mean. But I want to say Bernardo Silva. I think that he is gonna cause us real problems like he has before. I just like I said earlier. I just think the midfield is going to be a real problem, and for that reason, with our guys to watch.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, like because I'm not worried about Sunderberg, but do I say ESR? I don't know. It's just anyone in our midfield. I really don't know. I can't actually pick out a single one of our guys for this one to like be the one to watch. And it is out of like a kind of pessimistic viewpoint as well. I just think I just approach this with caution, like at all costs. But yeah, look, it's the last fucking game. Who knows? I give up now, guys. But yeah, sorry to not give you a straight answer.
No, to be honest with you, mate, I think we're all getting that end of season fatigue when it comes to sort of trying to work out what the hell's going on. So I don't really blame you. That I'll start obviously myself looking at it, and I look at this Man City team, and for me, I don't really think it's any of the established players that we have to really worry about on Sunday. It's going to be their youngsters that are coming through, and the one thing that you say that Man City have the luck and the pleasure of doing, you know, when you've got, you know, £2.5 billion worth of player and you start in 11, you can afford to put in a few youngsters here and there to get loads of Premier League minutes and get better than they potentially could be. You know, I've been impressed with quite a few of their youngsters this season. You know, it's really hard to say Rico Lewis is one of those players because, you know, he's been playing for them long enough now that he's playing for England and he's an outstanding young player. But he is a player for me that potentially can change games. And for a defender, which he naturally is, he is very good at carrying the ball, which is not really a shock when you consider he plays for Pep Guardiola. You know, you look at Man City and you look at Kevin De Bruyne and you go, you know, it's his last game for Man City. He's not really had a great season. No, he hasn't, but he's playing against Fulham and, you know, all sorts of how it can go out. You look at this game and you say that realistically, if Lukic and Berger are going to be the two starting in central midfield for Fulham on Sunday, they're going to have a really big game just trying to keep him quiet. The problem is trying to keep him quiet frees up whoever else is playing in centre midfield for Man City. And again, you could list off, you know, Jeremy Doku, you know, Foden, Nico O'Reilly, James McAtee, as I said, Nico, these are all players that are absolutely fantastic at football and they're really good. You know, the one thing I will say to you is Haaland's had an absolutely shocking 6 months. So put your house on him scoring on Sunday. It is as simple as that. Kevin De Bruyne is playing with no pressure, and you said he'll pump us on Sunday. Put your house on him scoring on Sunday. You know, Fulham wise, for me, the two players that are most important for us to have a really big game, if you exclude the two in midfield, it's probably Calvin Bassey and Anderson, because they're going to have a lot of work on their hands trying to keep Man City quiet on a pitch like Craven Cottage, which is quite small. It's not that expansive. You know, one thing that Man City can't do is play an awful lot of sweeping balls out wide, then put it back in, which they like to do. But one thing you can guarantee they are good at is still playing the ball down the middle. So they're going to have a lot of hard work ahead. So those two are going to be my two Fulham players to watch as well. Scoreline prediction. I'll be amazed if we get anything out of this game. I really do feel like we've had a bit of a hangover the last couple of months of the season, and rather weirdly, the after the Brentford victory on Sunday, I felt like the players are maybe basking a little bit too much in that record-breaking wins, record-breaking points tally thing. So I wouldn't be too surprised if we have a bit of a hangover for that. And I know Man City have played a league game since losing the FA Cup final, but I still think they're going to want to, put some goals past the team to sort of to show that their season hasn't been a complete dud. It is one of those ones. So scoreline wise, I'm gonna say 3-1 to Man City, and I wouldn't be surprised if AJ is correct in the shout that we take the lead, and then break the record for the most points lost from winning positions in the league as well. Because as the players have been tweeting all week, we are record breakers, and that's what we want. So that's what we're stuck with really. It's going to be a different one. Obviously, we're looking on Sunday to say goodbye to Tom Cairney, who's been an absolutely outstanding servant for the football club. We've been saying it for ages about build the statue, and maybe half jokingly saying that, but I think that if Sunday does turn out to be his last game for Fulham, he deserves every bit of reception he'll get from the Craven Cottage crowd, and it's really nice that it'll be against a team at Craven Cottage that this game's coming against, because we've seen a lot of ups and a lot of downs with Tom Cairney, not just in the sense of the team, and we've been relegated and promoted 5 times in those 10 years that he's been at Fulham, but he's been a great servant for the football club. I think he's one of those players that have come in, he's really embodied what it is to be a Fulham player. He's really taken on the mantle of being a Fulham player, and I think that no matter what happens at the end of the season, whether he gets that extra year's deal or he goes on to somewhere else, he will always be a Fulham legend. And I think that he's one of those things that it wouldn't surprise me if we see Tom at Craven Cottage as a fan at some point in the future as well, because I think he's really embraced that lifestyle of being down the south, and it is as simple as that. Lads, we obviously are going into the last game of the season. We'll be back to do our review of the game against Man City on Monday, so it'll be out on Tuesday. And then we'll be looking to do a couple of end of season reviews and some other shows like that in the next couple of weeks. We probably will take a break for the end of the season just to rest and recuperate ourselves. One of the things I do want to add, though, obviously, into the new season, Ful-on are looking to bring on some new people to come and join us co-host on the show. So if you're interested in coming and join us at Ful-on, give us a message on X, give us an email, fulham@gmail.com. We're looking to make some new content going into next season. It needs more than the 4 of us to do so. If you're interested in making some Fulham related content but not quite sure where to start, come and join us. If you've got an idea of a show you want to make but just want some help and some backing to do that, come and speak to us. We are more than willing to sort of listen to new ideas and have some more stuff. I know that AJ has some show ideas that he's wanted to do all season but hasn't been able to do because we've been too busy doing these reviews and preview shows and not really had the time to do it. I know I've got a few things that I want to work on. I want to bring back FFC and me, but just not really had much time to do those interviews this season because of work on this show, and there just not being enough of us to do so. So we are really keen and really interested in getting some more people joining us on that. One other thing that we've been asked to talk about is coming up this weekend. The Lilies, obviously, we did mention it in the last episode, are hosting a food bank drive on Sunday before the game between 2 and 3:15 at the ground on the corner of Stevenage Road and Cresswell Street. And they're looking for donations of food items that are sealed and in date and long life. So obviously no fridge or freezer food. There's a list on screen now for anyone who's looking to do so. If you don't quite know what you want to donate, they're also taking cash donations and contact donations. If you can afford to do so, please donate. It's a great initiative they're doing. They did it last year, and I think they raised a lot of money for the local food bank, which is great because we often don't really think of people in Fulham as needing these things, but it is a much more working class area than people realize, and every little helps to sort of help families in need at this time of year. Lads, not really much more to say other than let's enjoy this last game of the season. We can come back and we can review what has been a difficult couple of months, but a good season as a whole. I think trying to stay positive. I hope you all have a good weekend. Hope everyone who goes to the game on Sunday enjoys it. Please, as I say, and we always say, come and like and subscribe to the show. If you haven't already followed us on Twitter, then do so. We will be coming back in a few weeks with some more episodes for the end of the season. We'll no doubt be doing, season review, end of season awards, and all that sort of stuff. Have a good weekend, as I say. Hopefully, Fulham can pull something out of the bag on Sunday. Nothing really more to say other than come on, you Whites.